Was it an Igbo coup?
No, it was not an Igbo coup. It was not. And the answer is self-evident. Among the majors that carried out that coup, a principal actor was Major Adewale Ademoyega, a graduate of history from the University of London. He was one of the ideological foundations of that action. He and Major Emmanuel Ifajuna, who also was a graduate who read sciences at the University of Ibadan. They were the ideological bastions of that action. So you couldn't have an Igbo coup where one of the leaders was a Yoruba man. Out of 5 officers, they are known: Ifajuna, Major Ifajuna, Major Nzogu, Major Okafor, Major, what's his name? This guy who was killed in the counter coup. So about 5 majors, and you had that Major Adewale, and you had lieutenants who were of other ethnic groups, including Atong Pera, who was from the north. But that is just one side of the coin. There is another vital side to that issue. By January 15th of 1966, there were 40 Nigerians who were majors who had attained their majority in the army. 40. Of that 40, 24 were Igbo officers. 24 of those 40 officers. If you went to the rank of lieutenant colonels, you didn't have up to 5 northern officers who attained or superseded the position of lieutenant colonel as of that morning. And of those 16 other majors remaining, they were mostly not from the north. They were from Cross River State, what is now Cross River State, so, Akwa Ibom State, yes, south western Nigeria. So you didn't even have those officers in the north. If you had 24 majors, Igbo majors, and only 4 participated, how could it be an Igbo coup? Lieutenant Colonel Ato Chinyelu Nebwe was killed. The man came from Orifte in Anambra State. He was killed.
What was the circumstances of his death?
He was in opposition to the coup. It wasn't because he kept the keys to the armory, because he was quartermaster general.
Yeah.
And it's not the job of a quartermaster general to keep the key to the armory. He was killed because he was opposed to that coup. He was pure Igbo blood from the current Anambra State. So it is not true to say that no Igbo officer was killed. Lieutenant Colonel Ato Chinyelu Unegbe, he was killed. He was classmates with Yakubu Gowon. In fact, Yakubu Gowon was his best man during his wedding. They were friends. And also, when you check about the northern officers who were killed, no Fulani officer was killed. Yes. No Hausa officer was killed. Like Jema was not a Hausa man. Memelari was not a Hausa man. They were northern officers.
That brings us to the question. So how did we come to this conclusion that it was a northern army? Because if you look at the officers' corps, Igbos dominated the officer corps. So how did they not come to dominate the army?
I will explain that to you. The army is an appendage to executive political power. I told you that, extreme strength is its source. If it is filthy at the source, it will be filthy all throughout. If it only trickles, you won't expect it to be gushing down the line. Political authority resided with the prime minister, who was a puppet of the Fulani premier of northern Nigeria, who was controlling the country. So the army was controlled by Sardana of Sokoto. That is why they had that dominance.
Before the coming of the Sardana, Igbo officers dominated the army.
They
right?
dominated the army in the officer corps. They didn't dominate in other ranks. No, they didn't. A lot of the troops you had were from the north, especially the Middle Belt area. That's where you had all those private, lance corporal, sergeants. Those were mostly from the north and the Middle Belt region.
We can call them the foot soldiers.
Yes, other ranks, something like that. That's it.
So, having plotted the January 1966 coup,
yes,
you needed Igbo officers to counter it. Ironsi and the like of Njoku and Ojukwu countered Nzogo and Co.
Yes.
Yet, some will still argue it was an Igbo coup. If it was an Igbo coup, how did Igbo officers counter it?
Yes, you see, your question is fundamental, and I have to use it to explain certain things. The south of this country, especially my own Igbo people, don't seem to understand the power of propaganda, even though the doing of Nigerian journalism was Azikiwe. We seem not to understand it. What they did in the north, was to establish what they called the Northern Historical Society. And then they got all these British colonial forces, colonial officers like Moffat and all the rest of them, to be writing a lot of nonsense, publishing a lot of falsehood, spreading disinformation, circulating misinformation, and people took those things to become the basic truth of what happened. The coup from day one was never, from conception to perpetration until today, was never an Igbo coup. But it was to their benefit to make it look like an Igbo coup. How could you have an Igbo coup and its main intention was to institute Chief Obafemi Awolowo as the Prime Minister of Yoruba man?
Is that the truth?
Yes. Chief Awolowo confirmed it in his book, My March Through Prison. It is there. It is there. They made, Zogu was interviewed, he confirmed it. It's in the book written by Adewale, Why We Struck. It's in the book written by Major Bullier. It's all there. Do you understand? Okay, apart from, in this book, I devoted a chapter to General Yakubu Gowon that I entitled Ironsi's Army Chief of Staff. General Gowon is nearing 90 years. I think he should make peace with his God. I think he should make peace with his conscience.
Why?
Because he has been living a lie.
How?
What they did was to say that he was the one who crushed the coup. Yakubu Gowon arrived the country on the eve of the coup. He had no command.
Yeah?
You can't move troops without a command. The person who Ironsi gave the command to go and crush the coup was a Cameroonian, Captain Hans Anago. The man is still alive now. He's a traditional ruler in Cameroon because when these people, the southern Cameroon area, they went back to Nigeria, back to Cameroon. So he entered the Cameroonian army. He ended up as a general. He is still there. I got him. I interviewed him. It's in the book. And the man said, Gowon knows, and heaven knows that I led the troops. He volunteered to join us. But they kept, if you read this book, I keep forgetting these people because they are liars, these white men. Nobody told lies more than white people. I've lived with them, I've schooled with them, I know them. They lied intrinsically. So they formulated this fabrication that it was Yakubu Gowon who crushed the coup. Crushed it where? It was Ironsi who went from his house in Ikoyi to Ikeja, that cantonment, and roused Colonel Hilary Njoku from sleep. And they mustered the troops. And he delegated them to go and cross the Coup. That was what happened.